Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. How are y'all doing today? How y'all doing? It's been a while. Akansha, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Marino. How are you doing? All
Awesome,
good.
awesome. I'm doing all right. Hey,
Yeah.
Siddhant, welcome to the conversation. Glad to have you here today. We are missing a guest. We're missing Leon, and I think Leon is enjoying some dinner, which is okay. This is a casual learning in public, and sometimes you got to tap out and eat dinner, and it's all good. But
Mhm.
our focus today is going to be a little bit more specific because last week we kind of jumped all over the place. We attempted to bootstrap a Kubernetes cluster with Kubeadm, and then we did like the whole dance with Docker versus Containerd. And I think that was important because if anyone is studying for like the CKAD or the CKA, it's good to kind of see what that process is like and understand that that's a critical component, standing up a cluster and then installing a CNI after the fact. So there is a LinkedIn user, and I don't know who the LinkedIn user is. So welcome,
Hi.
welcome. Thank you for joining us. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use a kind cluster because kind is easy to stand up, but we also want to demonstrate an advanced method of installing Cilium, right? When we're installing networking in a physical environment, I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. But when we're talking about the software world or the virtual world, we kind of want to consolidate and be consistent with the types and approaches that we take to effectively install something. So what I intend to do today with Akansha is we're going to demonstrate how to deploy Cilium with Helm on Kind. And we're going to start as if I've only got like Kind installed on my system. Hey, Alessandro, welcome. Hey, ping me if you want to join this live stream. Just send me a Slack message, and I can send you the StreamYard. I'd love to have you on. You're more than welcome to join, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hey, Ayo Bami, thank you for coming into the conversation. Welcome. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to just drop them in the chat. Drop them, as a DM. We'll try to get to them. If you're interested in joining us live, you're also welcome to as well. We love having guests. We've had a number of guests come up, and for some reason, I think I'm scaring them off, so that's why they don't come anymore. All right, let's start with some slides here. So, nice graphic. Thank you so much, Akansha, for putting this together. I love starting this off with my slide decks because it's less work for me to do. I'm going to take a look at my Slack just to see if Alessandra might have pinged me. Yes, today we are a little early. So the reality is I'm a dad, so I have to take care of my kid and I have to get him to school. So that means that, maybe we got to start later. Maybe we got to start earlier. So that's like, maybe you're welcome to join. Yes, Krish, we're early today. Okay, so getting back on track. Let's be a little bit more intentional here. And I'm a dad, so yeah, we will sometimes have different start times on the Monday, but we're fixing this to Monday. Maybe we might move it to the weekend. I don't know. Like, it all depends on Akansha and Akansha's availability. And I don't want to chew into your weekend time because guess what? I would like to not do anything other than just sit on the couch and like browse my phone. That's just me, right? Like, I honestly would rather do that a lot, right? It's good. It's just, doom scrolling Twitter or Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok. And TikTok mainly because it's nice to pick up some styles. Like if I'm deciding I want to make my own TikTok reels or something or whatever else. Anyways, I am tangenting so much. Okay, let's talk about Cilium. Cilium install methods. So there's a few ways to install Cilium, right? You can use the CLI, which is a great way to get started. Like Cilium install dash version equals the version number. And as long as you have a Kubernetes cluster and your kube config is mapped to that cluster, meaning if you did a kubectl get nodes or kubectl get nodes, it should output the nodes. That Cilium install will target that cluster and install Cilium, the operator, the Cilium agents. and ready the cluster for CNI for container networking. And then you can follow that up with Cilium status to just verify that your control plane and your data plane is functional. But then you can also do another test as well. There's a Cilium network connectivity test just to verify that your pods have connectivity, your services can communicate with each other, your core DNS is up and running, because core DNS requires a CNI for core DNS to function. In fact, all pods require a CNI in order for them to communicate and function. So, having said that, Uni, yes, Cilium install. In the backend, it uses Helm, I think. Probably, I don't know. I haven't really, dissected the Cilium CLI binary to see what actually is going on here. But the reason why we have Helm here, because Helm is a package manager, right? Helm is another method in which we can install applications into Kubernetes. So before I dig into Helm in detail, right, let's talk about 20 years ago when we used to install applications into our servers. I would install a Windows operating system, Windows Server 2003. Windows Server 2003. Ew, how gross, how old, right? It's a very old operating system, but using that as an example, okay, you've installed it, and now you want to do some silent patching, right? A silent install of certain applications so that it runs. So you create a script, and in that script you have a manifest to say what the application is going to look like, the directory it's going to install into, the amount of disk space it has access to, any ports it needs access to, username, password, etc. And that's all defined in some sort of script or config file. Pause for a second. James, thank you so much for showing up to the conversation. Thank you. Hope you're having a great day. Krish, Windows Server sounds like you went through hell. Yes. Let me tell you, Windows Server was definitely fun to configure way back when. Anyways, so you're doing a silent install with the script. And the reason why I use the word silent is because you don't want to be prompted. You've already pre-configured the yes, the actual parameters for what that install should look like. And because you've done that, now the application should just install, provided that it has access to the right server, the right targets, everything that we expect to be there is there. This is exactly like how Helm works, right? Helm uses a manifest of sorts to effectively determine how the application needs to look, the namespace it needs to be deployed into, and any sort of additional parameters that needs to be configured. Yes, Nuno, Windows, a lot of Windows love. Trust me. I literally was just thinking about Windows Server 2025 and the fact that Hyper-V has re-entered the chat. So, Nuno, if you're interested, I'd love to work with you to try and get Cilium up and running on Windows Server. Just a thought, right? Let's park that thought and come back to it at some point. Anyways, so the idea is you use Helm to silently install an application. But if you're also very familiar with Linux, you might use yum or apt to procure an application or search through an index for an application that you're interested to deploy, like, I don't know, net tools or IP tools or something like that on a Linux operating system. Now, the analogy here is while yum and apt are to Linux, Helm is to Kubernetes. I want to deploy an application, I'll use Helm. I can even use Helm to search and decide, whether or not the application that I'm looking for exists. Now, it's really cool. It's very flexible. You can actually pair it with other systems too. Like you could pair Helm with a CI/CD system. You could pair Helm with a GitOps engine. You could pair Helm with like Argo or Flux, for example. There's a lot of different ways you can approach this, right? And I think Helm has become a very de facto standard across a lot of platform engineering operations to just deploy operational apps. Cilium is one, Istio is another. You could think of like some of the monitoring tools like Prometheus and Grafana have similar methodologies in which you use Helm, right? So I think it's worthwhile like exploring different applications and just familiarizing yourself with how to use Helm. It's really it. Now, Helm itself, right? Before we get into like the anatomy of it, there was a thought around Helm version 2 versus Helm version 3, and maybe Akansha, like, do you want to share a little bit about what you know about the two different versions and why we might want to use version 3 now?
So like according to my understanding, so there is a fundamental change in Helm 3 architecture wise. So there was Stiller, which was used in Helm 2, and now it's removed in Helm 3 because of security purpose. Because Stiller allowed you to, like, basically it manages the release life cycle, and it gives you a lot of control in the Kubernetes cluster, whether you want to upgrade, delete, and everything. So there was too much power in it, and that led to security issues, and that is why we removed Teller in Helm 3. But of course it complicated a bit in accessing and managing the Helm 3 version, but the security aspect was solved by removing Teller.
Awesome. So I listed out three main components. Now, there's the Helm repo, there's the Helm chart, and there's the Helm release. What are these? You know what? Like, I'm going to go right to Helm, the Helm website, and we're going to understand some of these together, right? Like, I've used Helm, like, in the sense of, hey, I'm just going to take what commands I see here and just drop them into wherever I need to and make this work, right? And I think it's important that we all solidify our own our own understanding. So let me reshare this tab. So I love the Helm docs because it's very, very nicely laid out. And in fact, they have a nice little cheat sheet, which I recommend you all check out. But there's three big concepts. So the first concept I brought up was a chart. It's a Helm package, and it contains all of the resource definitions necessary to run an application, tool, or service inside of a Kubernetes cluster. Think of it like a Kubernetes equivalent of a homebrew formula, an apt dp package, or a yum RPM file. So right from the docs, like I'm not making up my own stuff. This is literally from the docs. And as I stated earlier, we're just pulling an application from a repository. Now, the repository is the place where charts can be collected and shared. It's like Perl's cpan archive, or maybe even like your GitHub repo or GitLab repo, where you're storing all of your different applications. It's just a database, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this release. A release is an instance of a chart running in a Kubernetes cluster. One chart can often be installed many times into the same cluster, and each time it is installed, a new release is created. So let's consider a MySQL chart. If you want two databases running in your cluster, you can install that chart twice. Each one will have its own release, which will in turn have its own release name. So there is distinction. You can use the same chart, and you'll have multiple versions or multiple applications or releases that exist into your clusters. Now, Helm charts, or Helm installs charts into Kubernetes. So basically, we'll use Helm to deploy an application into Kubernetes. So Alessandro says Helm 2 was used by dinosaurs deploying to tanks. And Canal says, awesome. Love this. All right. Okay. So we have our base definition, and we have a cheat sheet here. I love this because the cheat sheet, like, I think I'm going to star this because you know what? One day I'm going to be like, how do I do this in Helm? And there have been times where I'm like, why isn't this Helm command not working? Chances are the answer lives somewhere here in this, and I'm just doing something incorrect. Now, there's a lot of like interesting things that you would do in Helm, like you would install an app, you would upgrade an app with some additional features, which we're going to discuss in a second. But there's customizability through the usage of Helm. And I think that's important too, because when you're adding customizability, there's this concept called values, right? Let's see if we can find the values. There's usually a values file or manifest. And what that values file is saying is, hey, this is how I want to parameterize my application. I want to enable BGP on Cilium. I want to turn on the eBPF kube proxy replacement. I want to disable gateway API or enable it, right? These are additional features that I need to go in and turn on, but I do so through the values file. So we have a base understanding of what Helm is. We know how we can use it to deploy applications. Let's go back to our presentation. Let's install Helm, because I don't have Helm in my system. In fact, I'm going to share my screen, my other screen. And, you know, I really like that it tells me that I can share an extra camera, but I can't share an extra screen. Like, it's so funny. Okay, let me stop my screen sharing. Now, while I'm pulling this up, Akansha, do you have any questions of your own?
No, like as of now, it's.
Alrighty.
Is it like echoing? Because
Ooh.
I'm able to hear my own voice.
Chrome has lost permissions to capture your screen. Ooh, this is gonna be fun. Ooh. All right. I'm gonna leave for like maybe a couple of minutes so that I can fix this, so I can share my screen. But I'll let Akansha maybe like, talk for a minute. Akansha, can you take over for a few minutes and maybe share some of your own like Cilium and Kubernetes learnings? Because I just realized that because I'm using a fresh new system, I have to like enable some permissions. So I'll be back in about a couple of minutes.
Okay. Cool. But like, what should I cancel?
Yeah, share anything about I don't know, like some of your learnings about Kubernetes so far, and some of the challenges.
Well, in the last stream, we were doing Kubernetes like from the Kubeadm way, and that was like so new for me because ones who have been like preparing for Kubeadm, like they could understand all those commands. So yeah, that was like pretty tough. But now I've been learning how to do it in my own personal way and following that stream. And today I was doing Helm installation using the docs, and so so yeah, like this, I've been following the streams and doing it on my own. And yeah, and yeah, so when I was like installing Helm, there was um a Docker issue that came in. That was that there was an um OCI issue, and then we like, and I was like debugging it, and apparently I had to uninstall all my Docker desktop, and later on when I came in and was debugging it, then we realized that only the hyphen IT flag was at the wrong position. And then eventually we were able to like solve it. So, but yeah, that debugging was a fun session. And we were like 10 people debugging that issue, that OCI issue was coming in. So, yeah, but
Was
eventually
that last
this
week? Was
was
that
an issue only, like it was today. We were doing it like in the morning, so everybody, so we just uninstalled the Docker desktop only, and then there were binary files, and we were just figuring out how to remove those as well. And then we later out figured out that there was just a flag issue in the command, so it was fun. But yeah.
nice? Can you hear me by chance?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, awesome. And there is no echo, right? Because I remember someone mentioned that there was a little bit of echo in a second ago. Okay. Anyways, all right. So can you see my screen, Akansha?
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So let me just clear and reposition so that my keyboard is close by. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull up a kind cluster configuration. So what I need to do is I need to go to the Cilium docs site. It's always fun when I'm trying to get to the docs and it's not easily navigatable. Is navigatable a word? I don't know. All right. Okay, so if you go to this location, right, I'll share the doc on the chat, right? So you should be able to access that documentation and you can follow along. All I'm doing is I am going to first curl that kind config so we can take a look at it, cat kind config.yaml. So if we look at this kind config, right, the one thing that we want to pay attention to is it has no name, it has one control plane node, 3 worker nodes, and this one configuration that says disable default CNI equals true. Now, what that means is we're not going to install the default CNI because we need to install the Cilium CNI. So, oh gosh, no such file or directory because I didn't put YAML. And now it'll be on its way to creating a kind cluster. So we'll verify the kind cluster functionality in a second. But I also don't have Helm on my system. So I'm going to have to install Helm. And we kind of saw an installation guide for Helm a second ago, or an install step, I think. And I think I could just copy and paste that right there. And we're almost on our way there. So anyways, the nice thing about kind is that it works with Docker, and I have Docker on my system to go out and create a Docker network, put those kind nodes. So there could be like, I don't know, there could be however many. We saw there were 4 kind nodes. And now that we have those kind nodes up and running, very shortly, we should see that, oh, look, it's all done. And that we have the kind nodes up and running, technically we should be able to start doing things. But here's the interesting thing. So if I do a kubectl get nodes -o wide, get nodes -o wide, if you look at this, right, they all say not ready. They all say not ready. Let's see if I can, I know it's making it a little bit smaller, but I want everyone to be able to see that they're not ready. And the reason they're not ready is because I don't have a CNI. So this is where we're going to install a CNI. But before I install a CNI, I need to get Helm up and running because remember, we want to use Helm to get Cilium installed. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and curl that. So now I've got Helm, right? And then I'm going to do a chmod 700 on the script. So basically, I'm making it executable. Anytime I run a chmod, what I'm trying to do is I'm just making that script runnable. If I don't do the chmod, then my user won't be able to execute the script. And I need the dot, obviously. And now Helm will be ready to go. And now if I type in Helm, lovely. So now we have Helm ready to go. Okay, so we want to install Cilium. So I don't have Cilium, but I think I might need the Cilium CLI. I can't remember. Let's go to the docs. Let's go take a look at the docs for a second and see what the docs tells us. Okay, so I did the kind thing. I don't want to use Cilium CLI, but let's go to the advanced installation section in the docs for a second. I saw it in a second. Installation using Helm. Here we go. So make sure you have Helm 3 installed. Okay, right? We've done that.
Yeah.
This guide will show you how to install Cilium using Helm. This involves a couple of additional steps compared to the Cilium quick installation and requires you to manually select the best data path in IPAM mode for your particular environment. Now, quite honestly, we're not doing anything special with the IPAM mode or anything with the data path. Like, we're just going to use tunnel mode. Tunnel mode, for those curious, right? Tunnel mode just means that all nodes in your cluster will form VXLAN tunnels to other nodes in the cluster. And the reason we do this is to create a broadcast domain for all pods to be on the same network. This is networking. So I think we need to revisit some of the broadcast networking and understanding like IP addressing and stuff. We'll maybe do that next time. I don't know. But I think that's important to understand, because what Cilium is aiming to do is create a network on top of an existing network. And when you do that, it makes all the pods feel like they're in the same switch, physical switch. Remember I showed you a switch in the very first stream we did, or a wireless device or wireless router or wireless switch, right? That's the same idea. Like we're connecting pods to a switch or containers to a switch. And Cilium is creating that functionality for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy the Helm repo add, and we're going to go back to our terminal now. Actually, we have the Helm repo add, and then we also need this, the install Cilium. Yeah, we don't need anything else at this point. So let's go back to our terminal. Present, share screen, go share. Okay. Now, Helm repo add Cilium. Cilium has been added. All right. All right. And then we're going to now namespace kube system. So yes, kube system. So what we're doing is we're saying Helm install the chart called Cilium from this repository located here with this version, and we're going to put it in the kube system namespace. So I hit enter, and that was it.
Yeah, it's done.
That's my silent install. Like I didn't do anything else. Now notice I didn't pass any values configuration or anything of that nature. I just did a straight up configuration. So if I do a kubectl get pods -a, now if we scroll up a little bit, right, notice that Cilium is coming up in online now. Okay. So we'll give it a few more seconds. And I'm sorry if I'm making this too small for y'all to read, but I just want to make sure I can fit everything across one line here. Oh no. That's okay. That's okay. It's still installing. It takes probably about a good 2 to 3 minutes for it to fully install sometimes. But once it's fully installed, then everything should be good to go. And then the other thing we can do is we don't have Cilium status, right? We don't have the Cilium CLI. So let's go ahead and install the Cilium CLI. And what I'll do is I'll go back to the docs. If you go back to Cilium quick installation in the docs, there is a method to install. Oh, it's interesting. Warning, the Helm installation mode becomes the default. The Helm installation mode.
Showing
oh, I'm not showing anything. Yeah. So I went here and it said, warning, the Helm installation mode becomes the default. The Helm installation mode becomes the default in Cilium CLI v0150. The classic installation mode is deprecated and will be removed in the next minor release. Okay, interesting. So someone made a comment about that recently and did say that it was a that was the case. So what I would do is I would just I didn't want to do that. Darn it. I actually want to copy the link address and I want to do a wget on my terminal. Oh yeah, I forgot. Mac doesn't have wget, or maybe it does. All right.
Brew is a
Interesting.
lifesaver.
What's that?
Oh, Krish is saying that we can use Brew to install Cilium.
Oh, wow. Uni, I didn't realize that. Brew install Cilium.
Cilium.
Huh. Wait. Brew install Cilium CLI. It's not Cilium. Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay, that's good. Cilium status. Oop.
Oh, typo.
Yeah. By the way, so thank you, Uni. The command that I ran was brew install cilium-cli. I was looking to do the curl equivalent, but let's do a Cilium status. And ooh, that doesn't look healthy. Unavailable. kubectl get pods -a. So what we can do is we'll just inspect this pod and see what's going on with this. kubectl get actually logs -n kube system. Wow, this is always fun. Actually, let's do a describe instead. Y'all are talking about brew and instead not helping me troubleshoot. Describe pod. Yeah, I gotta describe the pod. Oh, there's special docs for kind as you need to load the Cilium images. Not, I mean, by default, it actually works pretty cleanly. Kind. Yeah, there's nothing specific about kind.
I tried using kind. It worked. I don't know why it's not working now. Let's see.
Well, here's what we can do. I could just actually kubectl get pods -a get pods -n kube system -- show. Ooh. Actually, here. kubectl get deploy -n kube system. Okay, so I have that. Let me do an RS, a replica set. There's a Cilium operator. And let's check the daemon set. Let's see if there's a daemon set there. Yes, there was a daemon set. Okay. So I actually just explored 3 types of approaches to rolling out applications: the deployment, the replica set, and the daemon set. For those listening into the call or this live stream, a deployment just allows us to create a desired state approach to deploying our applications. So we tell Kubernetes how this application should look, and Kubernetes will honor that. Now, a replica set is a subset of a daemon deployment, meaning you tell the deployment that you want 4 copies. The replica set is always going to make sure that there are 4 copies of that. And that's why you see that there is a deployment and then an equivalent replica set for that deployment. Now, on the other hand, you can also use something called a daemon set. A daemon set actually will provision a pod for every node that you have in your cluster. So in this case, I'm going to do a kubectl rollout restart ds cilium -n kube system, and I hope this works. Okay, so it did work. So hopefully that restart should kickstart the process again. Ooh, okay. Let's give it a few to balance out.
So, like in the docs, it says there is a section restart unmanaged pods. Like there's a command for that.
No, that's not what we're going for. So something's going on with the Cilium install, and I didn't do anything out of the blue.
Weird though. Like it's very simple. Like
yeah, there's nothing special in the configuration. But here's the other thing. So if I did a kubectl kind create, actually, let's look at the config for a second. ls cp kind config.yaml, and we'll create a new one called kind2.yaml, right? bi kind2.yaml, which means just delete one of the workers for now. And then we'll do a, so I did Control R, right? And that Control R, I just started typing kind, but I'm going to type kind2.yaml. So, oh, dang it. I got to adjust the name field. Hold on. Can't remember where the name goes. Oh, that's right under the API.
okay,
all
so
right.
we're doing a
Oh, we're doing this again with C groups and thing. You know, I'm this close to just deploying a Civo cluster and deploying this with Helm, because guess what? I know it'll work with Helm with Civo. And you know what? As a backup, I'm just gonna log into Civo just in case. Civo com. Oh, dang it! I don't remember my password. That's okay. All right. So here we have this cluster up and running, right? And I'm going to just do a Cilium install. And this is literally just for me to just make sure that there's nothing wrong with what I was doing or with anything, because the Cilium install should have the equivalency of the Cilium install should have the equivalency of what I was trying to do with Helm, right? Because it's a bare bones install. I'm just curious that there could be something going on. So if I do a Cilium install, if I do a Cilium status,
the pod is still pending. Okay. Error.
That's okay. That's fine. Errors are bound to happen. And this is why I love learning in public, because as much as I like things to go as well as I possibly can hope for, it's
Mhm.
sometimes things just don't work out the way we hope. So it just happens, it's no biggie. See, it keeps crashing. Hey, for all we
Mm,
know, there could be something with the upstream build that keeps failing, right? So what I could do is I could do a Cilium install dash dash version equals 1.14.5.
wonderful.
Oh, shoot. Dang it. Actually, delete cluster kind2, kind cluster delete. One of the fun things about having to remember commands is like you actually have to remember the full command itself, and it's just like, come
Mhm.
on, give me a break. Like, give me a little bit of a break, right? Ooh. Okay. So the kind cluster is deleted. Let's redeploy that kind cluster again.
Mm,
Wait, before I did, I was going to do something quickly. Yeah, I was going to use that version. Okay. And then we'll use version 1.14.5 just to see if there's something in the version that's probably causing this.
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, it's working.
Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay, kubectl get pause dash a.
Watch.
Now the watch
Yes.
command just
Yeah.
allows us to consistently see the status. Yeah.
So there is again.
Good luck, y'all.
Mm,
Off to meetings. Thank
mm,
you. We can use
Crash.
K3. Yeah.
Yeah. Vivo.
That's okay. Still got a few seconds here. We could try something else.
I wonder like why this crash loop back off is like coming up.
Something could be wrong with DevOps is hard when Marino is quote trying unquote. Yeah, DevOps is hard-ish. But in the meantime, I'm going to get the Civo CLI up and running. Installation. I just have to put in my API key. Sorry, y'all.
The logs might state the image cannot be pulled as there's no route to get them. Therefore, the preload on Docker plus can.
Vivo region current, and this one is set to is PHX1. All right. Let me reshare my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. Okay. I just gotta Cilium, sorry, Civo Kubernetes Cilium config is saved. Okay. All right. kubectl get nodes. Okay, so they're good.
Okay.
Let's try the Helm install again. Okay, so now let's see.
Exactly.
Civo uses, so Uni, the default CNI that Civo uses is Flannel, just so you know.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It'll take like a few minutes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to take a few seconds. I think it should be good soon. Oh, there we go. We're rocking and rolling. Cilium is okay. kubectl get pods-a. All right. So if you take a look and see, my Cilium operator pods are running.
Operators are running, yeah.
My Cilium pods are running as well, which means that Cilium is up and operational. If I do a Cilium status again, right, it's telling me that Cilium is okay. The
Yeah.
operator is okay. I have
No
my
error code.
desired. Yeah, exactly. So we could do one more thing. Network connectivity test. Ooh, Cilium. Let's see if there's a. Oh, there it is. Cilium connectivity. I was trying to remember what it was. Connectivity test.
There was a test, right?
There we go. We're running it right now. So what's really cool about
connectivity test? Yeah.
Yeah. So it just basically runs a script to effectively deploy a few pods run some curl commands, and then validate that there's pod-to-pod connectivity, there's pod to node connectivity, there's pod to external connectivity as well. So it takes a few seconds, probably about a minute, but everything should be good to go.
So like if there is a like no connectivity between like two
It'll
pods,
fail.
so
It'll fail.
yeah, so then we can do another like that unmanaged pods command to like restart it.
The unmanaged pods command, like it's actually more of a, so an unmanaged pod is something that sits outside of either Kubernetes, like not Kubernetes, but outside of Cilium, right?
Mhm.
So maybe it doesn't have hooks or attachments from the sense of getting a network namespace attached to it and getting an IP from the IPAM from Cilium. But regardless, like it's not necessary to run that command now. That's more for in-depth troubleshooting and doesn't really have,
Okay.
I don't think it is related to the issue we were seeing. The issue we were seeing is
Mhm.
more related to, I think, what someone mentioned around the C group drivers. And I
Okay.
probably just didn't properly look into that, but which is interesting because it should work, right? Like right out of the box. But
Mhm.
as we're seeing here, the Cilium connectivity test is going. Uh,
Mm,
it'll take a bit. I think there was a quick way to do this too, and I can't remember if I passed the
so
quick.
Assad asked, how could I specify CIDR in Cilium?
So to specify a cider, are you talking about pod cider for Cilium?
Mm, the good answer.
So to answer your question, there's Helm options for basically specifying your pod cider, and you can specify the actual pod IP cider that you want. Just make sure that they're not overlapping in any way or overlapping with anything else. Because one of the challenges that you have to consider is that, like, if you have overlapping overlapping pod subnets or pod ciders, you may have a connectivity break, right? If you're trying to have them communicate amongst each other.
Mhm.
I wonder if this connectivity test is going to fail, but there's so many. Oh no, actually no, it's good. Every time I see a 200, that looks to be good, and there just could be. Hold on, what? Command curl should have failed. Interesting. Well, we'll see the output of it. All I know is that we have successfully installed Cilium, and any sort of other connectivity bricks could be something upstream. Like maybe I just didn't allow some ports on the firewall for the cluster itself for it to communicate outbound. But within a cluster, there should be full-on connectivity where pods can communicate with each other. Now, I don't know how long this connectivity test is going to take, but I'll let it do its thing. In the meantime, let's go back to our slide deck because I want to point out something as well. So we saw that Cilium can be installed using Helm. Kind offers up some weirdness that doesn't seem to like jive too well with us. So what I'd say is, like, experiment a little bit. Maybe try EKS or AKS and experiment with Helm and see how Cilium can get installed. I think in my case with Kind, I just might have missed something, and that's probably why we ran into a number of issues. But from my point of view, everything seemed to work fine on Cilium on Cibo
Mm.
Cloud. So that's good to me. Like we saw that, the connectivity test is going through. We also saw that all the pods, both the data plane and the control plane for Cilium, were up and operational. So that means like we're at that readiness stage. But the only thing is, like, there's still some more testing that needs to be done. And here's the other
Mhm.
thing, right? So what happens if you're like at this point where, oh, I've already installed Cilium, but I need to install more, right? I need to update the configuration or update the settings or update my parameters so that now Cilium can do more things. And I'm not just talking specifically about Cilium. This can be very applicable to other environments too. Like this could be applicable to installing Istio. This could be applicable to installing like Argo or other like utilities out there. Now, in the situation where you're adding more parameters, the Helm upgrade command allows you to update your chart and update your configuration, or I should really say update your release. And so that release will now have basically the updated configuration passed down to your actual, let's say, Cilium. So if I decided I wanted to enable Cilium's BGP functionality, well, I'm not reinstalling Cilium. I'm just doing a Helm upgrade with the Cilium repo. And then on top of that, I am passing in a values file. So I will also append a -- values and point it to a values.yaml. And in that values.yaml is where I have the additional parameters where I enable BGP, I enable direct nodes auto equals true, I enable certain IPAM modes for Cilium, I turn on kubeproxy strict, several different things that I do, but in the values file versus where I would normally do this I could do this in the Cilium CLI as well, but no need. Helm is the best way to do this. Now, having said that, there's still so much we have to explore, right? Like I think we hit the mark, we hit the hour mark right now. So I don't think we can proceed any further, but let's assume next week we come back and we're at that point where we need to do two things. We need to start deploying some applications and we're going to test out some basic network policy. So Kubernetes offers basic network policy, but it's not very extensive. And Cilium as a CNI has some extensibility across layer 3, layer 4, and even layer 7 policy. So we can get pretty granular. And then we could also use the same Cilium control plane to apply policies at a node level as well, or at a cluster level, so that you could basically decide how you want to carve up the way you want your apps to communicate. So we'll be back again next week. Akansha, do you have any questions? Any thoughts?
Yeah, so like I know about Helm that there is a rollback command as well. So like if you could tell in brief, like
I don't know anything about the rollback command, but let's look it up. Helm rollback.
that.
So I'm gonna share this tab. So Helm rollback. Roll back a release to a previous version. It's kind of like same situation. Sedent. It could be because I'm on an. Sorry, I just saw this. This could be because I'm on an ARM-based Mac, and that's probably the reason why I'm running into this issue. And I probably missed some subtle configuration there. Assad said, "Is there any challenges you have faced when you disable kubeproxy since Cilium has its own way of discovery?" There's actually like capability challenges. So you can only turn on kubeproxy if you have certain things turned off. I can't remember what they are, but if you actually look at the Cilium documentation, it'll outline certain ways you can configure Cilium with kubeproxy being strict, and that actually leads you to disable some other things, or you can't turn on some other things as well. So yeah, going back to Helm, you can roll back your release in case, let's say I deploy BGP and I incorrectly deployed the autonomous system number for BGP and I want to roll it back. Well, that's what Helm rollback would be used for. So let's go back to this tab. All right. Uni, yes, we will cover Hubble. Hubble's, at a brief high level, is an observability tool that is used to help us understand TCP and UDP flows between our services, but also associate them with layer 7 requests and also visualize this in some sort of traffic map. But there's also some extensive capabilities that Hubble offers as well. We'll dig into that in another session. But for the time being, we've got Cilium up and online on Cibo Kubernetes with Helm. We're doing a network connectivity test on the back end, which I'm seeing it's looking good. But in my case, using Windows, if I was using Windows, apparently it would have worked. But I used Mac and I'm using an ARM-based Mac, so that's probably why I'm running into some issues. Assad, please give us some thoughts on MTLS and Cilium. MTLS and Cilium is interesting because it's not the traditional form of MTLS that we're used to. It's actually a different iteration of it called mutual authentication, but it uses the idea of mutual TLS from like service mesh. And we will talk about this in one of the next episodes. But I just want to say, this was a great episode. This was a great session. Maybe next time I will do a lot more of the driving, and I'll just sit back and relax a little bit, and we'll test that network policy. But in any case, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for coming along, learning a little bit more about Cilium and how to use Helm, and even learning about Helm too, and using it to deploy Cilium, and knowing that you could use it to deploy other applications in this space. But I'd like to thank you all for coming by. Thank you all for spending the time with us. And we hope to see you again next week. We have a live stream tomorrow with Mark from Tremolo. We're going to be digging into some Open Unison and some deeper RBAC, Cert Manager, and Kiali. And this Thursday, we have a Twitter space on GitOps with Christian from Kubeadm. So we hope to see you all there. Take care. Have a great evening, great afternoon, great night, great morning, wherever you are. See ya.
Bye.